Welcome into Bears Weekly, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Creeping towards the 2026 training camp at Hallis Hall, the Bears are on break, but we're knocking on July's door with excitement building for Ben Johnson's crew. Welcome to Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Chicago Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer and former Bears quarterback Jim Miller. I'm Jeff Joniak. Dan Barilli, Jordan Trudup, Katie Fox, our producers with Kendra Smith in the ESPN studios tonight. And the executive producer of the Bears Radio Network is Eric Ostrowski. Coming up tonight, we sit down with new Bears linebacker Devin Bush, Hall of Famer Jimbo Covert coming up here in a moment. First of all, a happy end of June to you guys. I know wherever I go, people are really jacked up once again. They cannot wait to the start of training camp. But, they've got almost a month to wait. They can't contain their excitement, Tommy.
Yeah, but that's the fun part about the conversation. Wherever you go in your life, whether you're traveling or you're staying in the neighborhood, everybody wants to bring up something about the Bears of this past season, but it makes them look forward positively to this upcoming season, just like the rest of us. So the Bears themselves, they have big shoes and expectations to fill, but I think they got the perfect man at the head in order to get this team pointed in the right direction. And when they do get back to work, there's high expectations for this group.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's getting excited. It does say when training camp's just around the corner that the season's about to start. And the expectation from last year, I mean, people just couldn't believe it. It was an exciting finish to the season. But I also know this, Jeff, that as training camp approaches, everybody's doing their fantasy drafts. Yeah. So they're excited because it hasn't ended. The buildup is just starting because their fantasy leagues are going to get going.
I spent some time with your old teammate, Brian Urlacher, earlier today at an event, and he is all in on the 2026 Bears. Doesn't believe they're going to take a step back. He really believes they're going to take a big step forward. And part of it is, Tommy and Jim, is that he believes the offense will be so powerful that the defense will be playing defense on the lead, which should make their pass rush better just with that alone. In
all of our existences here with the Chicago Bears and throughout our football lifetime, how many times have we seen the same coach, the same system, the same terminology, and the same quarterback coming back to back? I don't think we have a great deal of experience with that. So whether it's, Jim being an ex-NFL quarterback for double-digit years, you and I being around football for as long as we have, when you see this opportunity presenting itself, listen, the Brian's expectations are the same as all of ours. They're championship expectations and hope in what this team can do.
I think of Brian, since you brought him up, and just think of that young group of linebackers he was with, Holdman, Rosie Colvin. I mean, those guys, when they came in, that was a young group that just learned and got better and better. And I think that's how you kind of got to look at this Bears team. Look at guys at key positions that are going into the second year of the same offense that they were in and had a lot of success, whether it's Rome Odunze or the tight end Loveland. And you look at Caleb, and, there's a lot to be excited about. And I think there's a lot of similarities of young players who are talented, who are going to continue to gel, and they're going to continue to grow.
Pro Football Hall of Famer Jimbo Covert also high on the Bears right now. Tommy, I had him on our Bears Etc. podcast, episode 227. Check it out if you can. Dominated his position, of course. A great cornerstone with the Bears' Super Bowl winning season in 1985. Tommy's teammate. We asked him if he would enjoy blocking for Caleb Williams.
Well, I'd love to block for a kid like him because he just makes things happen. He's able to, get out of the pocket and extend the play. A lot of times scrambling quarterbacks are hard to block for, right? Because, when you try to stay square on a guy and you don't know where the quarterback is, you're trying to stay square, you might be pushing him right into the quarterback if you don't know where he is. So now they drift around a little bit. But he just has a knack for it. I think his rookie year, you saw flashes of that. And then I think what they did was when they upgraded the offensive line, and they got a couple Pro Bowl caliber people in there, and they were able to cut the sacks in more than half. Then that's what you saw. You saw that ability of him, staying in the pocket when he needed to and setting up and throwing it. And he throws just as well on the run as he does setting up. So And now they get some targets for him to throw to. So I think you're going to see some special things from him in the coming years.
And then, Tommy and I have been talking about it. It'll be the number one story at training camp is the battle for the left tackle position. Right now, I guess there's 5 candidates for the position, but Braxton Jones is one of them. And then Jedrick Wills is coming off a year off to get healthy. That's an intriguing one because he's a number 1 pick, formerly with the Cleveland Browns. Theo Benedett, Karan Amagaji. How do you handicap that? What in this offense with Ben Johnson that you observe from afar watching the games would you like to see at left tackle?
Well, I think Braxton's a quality player. I think he's got good feet, and I think people give him a bad rap about he doesn't sink enough to from a bull rush perspective. They think he doesn't do as well in the bull rush. I mean, Tommy will tell you, I love people that bull rush me. They can do that all day long. It's the guys that make you move your feet are the guys that you have problems with. And so I think he's going to be fine there. And I thought Theo did a really nice job as well. I mean, so it'll be a battle there. But you need that because we haven't had anybody stay healthy at left tackle. Everybody's gotten nicked. So they all have the qualities to play there. You got to have a full season in, which is difficult in this day and age now with people getting injured and everything. So we'll see. But I don't know how to handicap it, but I would think probably Braxton's your leader right now until someone dethrones that, right, and see what happens. But I think Theo did a nice job when he came in last year.
Jimbo, Jeff mentioned how when you came to the Bears in '83, you kind of changed the point of attack, what the offense is going to be, left-handed power offense. Darnell Wright, he came on the scene last year, man. He developed and, he came in as a much more powerful right tackle. Are you okay with this offense with an athlete like Caleb being right-handed centric?
Sure, I don't have a problem with that. Whatever your strength is, you got to play to. And, if it's going to be on the right-hand side, go with it. I think Darnell's a great player, and I think he showed it last year. I think he came on a little bit slow at the beginning, but you're seeing something right now. I mean, he's a beast. I mean, he comes off the ball. No, I don't have a problem with that at all. I think the pass protection thing, those guys are going to have to continue to take people on and pick where your battle's going to be, right? Don't give up too much ground and try to stay square and get on your guy and do that. And I think once you see that, it will be interesting to see how these guys perform. But if they can cut the sacks down from last year, I think they did a great job. What was it, 60-some sacks a year before that? And then they
68 the year before.
Yeah, and then it's like, what was it, 25 or 28 or something? It's amazing, right? I mean, you can see that, and so, and that's how, people always talk about, the Bears and such great running team and when we were playing. But if you go back and look at our stats, there's like a 16-game season, Tom. I think we gave up like 24 sacks or something like that, 25 sacks. And people are like, all they do is run the ball. I mean, 24. I mean, think about that. I mean, you don't even see that now, right? Because it's so pass-centric. They just give up way more sacks now, but that was a pretty impressive stat, too, for our offensive line.
He talked about that offensive line, which you were a part of, Tommy. Caleb was sacked just 6 times on first down, 6 times on second down, 11 times on third down, once on fourth down. Overall, the Bears were third in the NFL in sacks allowed, trailing Denver and the Rams. They had 23 each. That was tied for first. The average number of sacks allowed, which I think this what makes Jimbo crazy, and maybe you as well, and Jim, you might feel the same, is 40 sacks on average in the NFL last season. Playoff teams, the average was 34. Now, you guys ran the ball a lot more than you threw the ball back in your day, Tommy, but that's a high number of sacks.
So I think of when you look at that amount of teams that have given up that amount of sacks, look at the first-time head coach, look at the first-time offensive coordinator, look at the first-time quarterback within the system. So a lot of times you could probably look at that analytic portion of it, and it could tell you a lot about numbers. But, you were bringing up a point last year about how many offensive coordinators and head coaches have turned over in a short amount of years, and the numbers are huge. huge.
Yeah, typically there's, we've seen as much as 10 coaches get fired. So, the window, which used to be 5 years, is quickly down to 3, which we've seen guys get let go in 1 year. But, as for what Jimbo talked about, I like, you look at the jump Caleb made last year, not only with the turnovers, he was very good at not throwing interceptions, but how he was much better in the pocket first year under Ben Johnson. He knows when to hang in there and when he needs to take off. Because as Jimbo explained, it's hard playing behind a scrambling quarterback. If it is just a free-for-all back there and you don't know where he's going, so you have to have discipline in the pocket, whether it's a 3-step, 5-step, or 7-step drop of when you're going to take off or when the realistic time period where that alarm goes off where you need to get rid of the ball and start taking off. Otherwise, it can be problematic for your offensive lineman. I think Ben Johnson did a really good job communicating with him last year of when and when not to do that, or at least be very conscious of that alarm in his head.
By the way, at the left tackle position, Covert, the only Pro Bowl appearance between Klein Gilbert in 1957 and Big Cat in 2001. All right, when we come back, we have position battles, both sides of the ball with Jim and Tom. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Bears.
It is gone!
Bears Weekly.
Time expires!
A deep dive into all things Bears.
And the Bears win!
With Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer, this is the home of the Bears, ESPN Chicago.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or a virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow with Tom Thayer and Jim Miller. We touched on it last segment with Jimbo Covert, the position battles on the offensive line, specifically at left tackle. That'll draw the most attention by far. Has anything changed as both of you analyzed what amounts to basically 4 players plus Ozzie Trapillo, who's not quite ready at the start of the season, but will be at some point during the season at that position?
To me, when I look at the battle at the offensive line, it is about the starting left tackle position, and it plays such an important role. And I'm glad that Jimbo had a positive opinion about the competitors at the left tackle position. I think when you look at some of the guys that are waiting in the wings, waiting for the backup position, how many offensive linemen they've had to play in the last 5 years, I think those battles are equally as important as the starting left tackle position. And so who can play those spots? So it's going to be interesting. And Braxton Jones, like Jimbo thought, is the leader in the clubhouse right now. And but I think the competition behind him and some of these guys are going to be introduced to the difficulties of a Ben Johnson training camp. And Jedrick Wills has been out of training camp now for a year. So we'll see how things work its way out at that position. But I think the backup positions are equally as important.
Yeah, there's going to be battles for the backup, but realistically, they all have played the position. They're all much more mature now since they have played, and I think we know you typically you're going to ascend as a player as you roll along. And Braxton Jones has had bright moments, he's had bad moments. We could say that about Ozzie Trapillo last year. His bad moment obviously was getting injured. Jedrick Wills has had high points and low points, and as a player, all you can do is learn from your mistakes, mature, and get better. And I think all have done that, and we'll see where it settles. This is a new year to prove themselves and see where they've strengthened their weaknesses to see if they can be more of a complete player to earn that job.
Also, Ben Johnson liked using a jumbo tight end package. Theo Benedict got a lot of snaps there. Ozzie Trapillo did as well. With 3 tight ends, fellas, do you think that will continue, or will he spice it up?
I would hope it should continue. I do. I think 13 personnel can be a difficult personnel grouping to really go against, especially, tight ends who can block. If, let's say, you bring in dime players, or you've got dime on the field defensively, that's a really a win for the offense. You should be able to overpower that from that standpoint. So it's about substitutions when teams are low at certain positions and what they play. I think 13 personnel can definitely throw a wrinkle into the mix and cause defenses a lot of problems.
Yeah, I like the multiple uses of the tight ends, and I like the 6 offensive linemen, because I was thinking back as we were talking to Jimbo the other day. When I went out to training camp the first day, I think there was 7 to 9 tight ends in line. And the biggest tight end was about 240 pounds maybe, and maybe 238 pounds in Reitman. Now, when you go back and you look at that tight end line, it's as high as 270, and it could be as low as 240-ish. So the size of that position is a lot different when you're thinking about multiple 13 personnels or 6 offensive linemen. All
right, let's talk about the wide receiver position. That'll be a battle as well. Adunze Burden will battle over that number 1 spot, number 2 spot. Khalif Raymond will be in the mix as well at the number 3. But then you've got the rookie Thomas, you've got Jade Walker, you got the veteran Scotty Miller, just to name a few to fill out that 3, 4, 5, 6 wide receiver spot. Is that going to be fun to watch as well for you guys?
For me, I have higher expectations for Jade Walker than just a free agent. I think he's a type of guy that has the attitude, the work ethic, the desire, the willingness, everything that these position coaches want to see out of a guy. And so I think he can bring in a certain competitiveness to the entire wide receiver room that, it's still about Rome, and it is about Luther, and it's about Xavier and Cliff and stuff. But it's going to be an interesting room of competitors, and they have, one of the most competitive position coaches that you could have in the NFL.
Yeah, I do too for Walker as well, because there's not a lot of receivers that are 6'3", 210 pounds. So, typically they're going to fall in that, the 5'10", 6 foot range. But you start getting to 6'3" territory, there's guys that have it, and every team tries to have one. But to have that stature, that size does play in your favor. It's a big man's game. I think we know that. I think it's always been a big man's games, and there's those outliers of smaller players that, really are the anomalies. So I think Walker can carve out a role, and I do think that third wide receiver spot. We'll see what Thomas can do as a rookie. I'd say right now you're going to defer it to Khalif because he's the veteran, and Scotty Miller has playing time as well. But I think Thomas is going to be expected to be contributed, and much like how Loveland burst onto the scene, he just got more and more. I think that's the expectation for Thomas as the season goes along.
And it should be noted that Alameda Zacchaeus, who is now back in Atlanta, had nearly 600 snaps last season. So Adunze Burden were there with DJ Moore. Of course, Adunze was injured for a chunk of that season, but that's a lot of snaps for a wide receiver at down the line, wide receiver in that position. Running back, do we have a battle for number 3 behind the swift and mighty backfield, Tommy? Saban Ahmed, along with Roshan Johnson, Britton Brown. There's some other undrafted free agents in the mix as well.
I think there is. I think they have a new running backs coach, so everybody is basically starting with a clean slate other than Eric Stuzville, the new offensive running backs coach, can look at a lot of tape from last season and how this offense developed with the running game, and then how when Monangai got inserted, what he was able to accomplish. But, that's an interesting position because their requirements is a lot like tight end. You got to do a little bit of everything. You got to block at the point of attack. You got to pick up blitzes. You got to be able to run coverage against defensive backs, safeties, and linebackers. So the similarities in the requirements, and then you got to get the dirty yards when you're required to have those short yardage carries. So I think there's nobody that's out of the mix, and I think it's all going to be for, evaluation, and they're fortunate to probably have a couple of practices against opponents. So you can learn a little bit more about a player when they have to go in against an opponent after they've been practicing against their own guys for 20 or 30 practices.
Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing against the guys they've added, when you look at Britton Brown and Salvin Ahmed. But to me, I think it's been unfulfilled for Roshan Johnson, his contributions. Kyle Monangai is somewhat taking that over, and I think it's incomplete right now from Roshan. He's a big back who shared carries with Bijan Robinson, one of the most decorated running backs coming out. Look at the career he's had, and I just think it's been kind of unfulfilled right now from Roshan Johnson. So I expect to see a lot from him. I think I think he would admit that he's somewhat disappointed with where his career is at right now.
All right, coming up next, we got Devin Bush. We'll also talk defensive battles coming up in training camp here in the next month. This is ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network.
Bears Weekly is back, and so are Tom Thayer and Jeff Joniak on ESPN Chicago.
Back with you on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer, Jeff Joniak here with Devin Bush. Man, good to have you, number 12. He's nodding approvingly. Excited to be here in the big city.
Yeah, man, it feels good to be here. Nothing but love since I touched down in Chicago, so I'm grateful for that.
Well, how would you compare your experiences? I know it's just the off-season program heading into veteran minicamp here, but you've been at a couple places, so you could tell us, how it feels. Right.
Great flow of the team. Obviously, I can say that just from practicing and lifting with the team, from the strength staff to the coaching staff. Obviously you can feel that it's closely knitted. There's a plan of action, and we grinding every day.
Devin, my first away game in college was Notre Dame, Michigan at Michigan. And I walked into that stadium, and it was something I just couldn't believe my sights.
Right.
So when you think about the way that your college prepared you to come into the NFL, were you already prepared for the crowd and the hostile environment and everything because of the atmosphere you played in college?
Yeah, 100%. Those big-time games, obviously, with those big-time schools, I mean, in the league, every game's big-time. So you get used to the circumstances, you get used to the situations, and and the magnitude of the game and what's being played for that day, whether it's a rivalry or just one of those big dynasty type of legacy games that you get every once in a while.
How'd you do against Notre Dame?
We lost, man.
I'm joking.
I know.
Listen.
Lost,
we had a bad game against Michigan as well. But so when you talk about your assets and the development of your assets, because I look at you and I know that speed is an asset for you. Mm-hmm. Was that something that developed early in your career? You got to recognize, hey, my speed, my recognition is what is going to get the job done for me, and then that carrying through to your NFL career. Yeah. How important is that in your role, not only in this defense, in your time in the league?
Yeah, obviously, from a young age, speed has always been a part of my game. And just moving through the ranks, once you go to high school, you go to college, and you go to the pros. I mean, everybody's always saying, get better. There's always something to get better at, but, you don't want to forget what the main thing was that put you on the map or got you, to that recognition that you got to get to the next level. So speed is the top of my game for sure. It's something I definitely pride myself on, and recognition helps me play just as fast. So, I don't always have to run, 4-4 across the field every play. So I can use my experience and, my studying to make myself from a 4-4 to a 4-2 or 4-1, whatever you want to, judge it based off of.
When you look at modern day offenses in the NFL, linebackers got to have some unique versatility. You got to be able to disengage from an offensive lineman. You got to be able to cover tight ends and receivers. Is that a part of your game that's developed throughout the course of your career, or were you ready for that as soon as you came out of college?
Yeah, I think I had the potential. I had the tools to be ready coming out in college, just off the raw talent. But I think it's something that definitely developed throughout my career. When you first get in the league, man, you playing against these guys. I remember my first year, I was playing against Dave DeCastro and Pouncey and Villanueva. So those guys been in the league 8, 9, 10 years by the time I had my first snap. So they making checks at the line that I never heard before, and they blocking me in different schemes that I never got blocked before. So. It definitely took, some reps against those guys and just some time to develop, a skill in the game, whether you got to take on an O-lineman or also run down the field with, fast receivers.
Devin Bush, our guest here on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network. What have you learned about this defense so far that excites you?
I like the playmaking ability it gives you. It's very versatile. We come with different looks, and we can put people in different places, to do different things. Based off of their skill set. But I'm excited. We have a great D-line in front of us. We got top flight corners. We got, additions to the back end, replacing those safeties I left last year. Obviously new faces in the linebacker room, including myself. So I'm excited to put it all together and see how it looks.
And facing Ben's offense, even in this early stages, I mean, they're at a different floor than they were a year ago.
Yeah,
they keep adding, so...
Yeah,
does it impress you what you're dealing with every day? Because you don't know what's coming next.
No clue. That's one thing I can't say. This is probably one of the fastest I've been hit with a lot of stuff in OTAs, and this probably been OTAs where it's like, okay, like I didn't think we were running those type of plays until camp or whatever. But I get why we practice in the backfield now, so nobody can see what we're running. But man, I've been gonna give it to you. You know, he gonna build it. He gonna make it. He gonna create a matchup. He gonna find the down safety. Find your 2-eye, and he's gonna attack you in ways that you obviously it's a game rep game like feel. So you're put in situations where you have to learn and adjust.
Yeah, you probably went back to your game plan from the Browns game, right?
Seriously,
right. Seriously?
Seriously.
Tell us what it's like to prepare for his offense in a regular season game like you did.
Yeah, last year I remember going to the game. The 1-2 punch with Swift and Monangai was just something that pops off the screen because it's not like it's a drop off when Ford comes off the field and Monangai comes back on. He can run the ball. They both catch out the backfield. They both could pass pro. They can run between the tackles, outside the tackles, and then you add in Colston, you add some Komet, and you get in these big sets, and you can run behind them, or you can play action and take them deep. And then you just got, Burden on the outside, you got Rome on the outside, and then 18 just puts it all together, and Ben's just the mastermind behind it.
I got one for you, too, because I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm almost weary of the national scope on, do you really need 3 tight ends?
Yeah, you do.
Now, tell people what kind of position that puts the defense in with a 13 personnel package.
Right.
Because these 3 guys the Bears have right now, they got 7 in camp, and they all can play.
They all can play, right.
And they're threatening every blade of grass as receivers, let alone blockers. So they're asking you to declare what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So as a linebacker, facing that.
As a linebacker, you get on the field, you get 13 personnel. You'll probably we won't be in a nickel package for sure. You probably be in bigger packages, so you probably have another extra D lineman or an extra linebacker on the field. And next you get on the field, and next they clap their hands, and Colson's lined up out wide, and Komet's in the slot, and another tight end's in the actual tight end position. Now you could run the ball, you could pass the ball, you could play action the ball. You're not just sitting there in 13 personnel saying, all right, they're going to run the ball. And it doesn't happen with those type of guys in this offense because Colson could be a number 1 receiver if you ask him to. Komet could be a F or U or up back and catch the ball out the backfield or run outside the backfield. So you never could go to sleep with these packages as Ben's throwing out. It's just whatever he wants to do with these guys.
So, Devin, a vision responsibility as a linebacker, Jared Goff versus Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. You look at, the dynamic athlete Kyler Murray is, and you look at the experience Jared Goff has. Does that change vision responsibilities for you, or is it the same alert awareness no matter who's playing quarterback?
I think it's different because Murray has the extension of plays with his legs and his athletic ability to make throws on a run. Goff gives you that experience to where you're not going to hide much from him. Disguises can almost hurt you playing against a guy like that. So your pass rush has to be real hot. Your coverage has to be real hot. But I don't think you prepare for them the same.
Right.
I think Kyler Murray, you get closer to the red zone. You can keep the ball now. You can get on his rollout, his boots, his sprint outs and stuff like that. I think with Goff, it's a lot more, read and react and concepts and getting guys to spots and stuff like that.
All right. Your father was a Super Bowl winner with the St. Louis Rams.
Yes, he was.
As a safety, Devin Bush Sr. How did that relationship help get you where you are today?
All football. Since I can remember, I've known what a football helmet, football pads, football jersey looked like. It got to the point I remember they were saying I used to ask kids like, "What team your dad play for?" Just going up to like regular kids. Yeah, hey, like, how you doing? What's up? What's your team, your dad? And it's like, nah, not everybody dad plays football.
But down in Pembroke, the Pembroke Pines, right? Everybody does play football.
Everybody does play football.
That's a heck of that's funny.
Yeah, so it's been that since I can remember.
You know what? I went down several years ago when Devin Hester was named to the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. I went down to Orlando to interview him in his home.
Okay.
And he's coaching his son in football, little guys. Mm-hmm. And we go to some high school in Orlando, and every field was covered. And all I hear is yelling, moms screaming, taking the kids' helmets. The language was kind of. I'm like, what world did I walk into? Explain to people that Florida football is it's different.
It's life. It's life, man. It's something that's just it's part of your everyday nature. You know, you go to school, football. You know, football during PE. You leave school. Got football at 5:00. You know, it doesn't snow out there. It don't snow. So I mean, as long as they got a ball and some grass, which is grass everywhere down there, yeah, you good. So a lot of guys, including myself, football, baseball, basketball, swimming, whatever you want to do.
Which also leads to a love of the game, which clearly you do.
Exactly.
Congratulations, be here.
Thank
We're looking
you.
forward to see you work.
I appreciate you guys.
That's Devin Bush for Tom and Jeff. We'll be back after this on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly, a Chicago Bears production on the flagship home of the Bears, ESPN Chicago.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Really got a kick, Tom and I, our conversation with Devin Bush. On the quiet side, but he opened up. We had him laughing. But this was a very key acquisition. He had a terrific line last year for the Cleveland Browns. His only 17-game season in his career, as a matter of fact, 3 interceptions, 2 for touchdowns, 124 tackles, 2 sacks, 8 pass breakups, 4 quarterback hurries, 7 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. So there was a lot being done behind Myles Garrett in that defensive line, Tommy, by Devin Bush, and he hopes to do the same for the Bears.
I'm really excited to watch Devin Bush because when I think about the times of watching the football in the 70s and the 80s, and you looked at the linebacker and you looked at the Jack Lamberts and stuff like that, they were a bigger body. They were stronger, sturdier, bigger types of guys that were protected by big defensive tackles and ran laterally. Devin Bush is a guy that he can do everybody. He can do everything. He can cover tight ends. He can cover backs. He can run laterally as well as any athlete on the field. And he's the type of guy that's developed certain traits and qualities of his abilities, even though he's not the biggest template of linebacker on the football field in the NFL nowadays. He came from a major marquee program out of Michigan. He's been on the NFL and understood what these athletes are all about. And so I think Dennis Allen's going to have a lot of fun with him because he's kind of a unique kind of a toy that you can blitz. You can drop back. You can, rush him against the run. And I think this was the right choice for Devin to have a second portion of his career with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I think, if you look at Dennis Allen's linebackers, they typically have been more in this size and this range. Think of Zach Bond, who was down in New Orleans. Then he heads up to Philadelphia and bursts onto the scene. But, Edmonds, who was here previously, that is a big middle linebacker, more in the 250 range. And, the game is more about speed now. And if you remember last year, they were rotating those guys in and out. He was actually moving Edwards in sometimes to the middle backer spot. I think they do want a speedier linebacker. Devin Bush fits that mold, in my opinion. His dad, he comes with great credentials. I played with his dad as an Atlanta Falcon. His dad was a safety. So he comes with good football pedigree. And so it's going to be interesting. But at the end of the day, they've got to learn the communication between each other. Edwards and those linebackers need to be talking. They need to get to know the D-line, how those guys play up front. And so there's a lot of things that need to be covered between here and in the start of the season so they work together as a complete unit.
All right, real quick, give us one position battle on the defensive side of the ball each of you are keenly interested in. Start with Tom.
I think nickel corner. And I don't know if it's a battle or they just want Kyler Gordon to stay healthy, or do they feel a Muhammad that they brought in here, or Cam Lewis, or someone is, on this team already that can play that position, because we see the important role it plays in the modern day defenses now. It's as much of a starter as any position you want to call a starter. So I think it's almost like running back. You have these, 5 or 6 guys that are fighting for the running back position. Now you got 4 or 5 guys that are fighting for that nickel corner position. And because of the role and the importance it plays, I think that's going to be one of the more interesting battles throughout training camp that I'm going to pay attention to. And unfortunately for me, a lot of it has to do with the health of Kyler Gordon.
Yeah, his health. I mean, it was problematic, obviously, and he can do a lot of things. I think that was one of the players that Dennis Allen was excited about when he arrived as a defense coordinator. And unfortunately, he just couldn't suit up. You still got to point to opposite Montez Sweat. Ardayo obviously got hurt last year. Booker makes an impact late in the season. Is it going to be a revolving door? Is one of these players, even Shamar Turner, are one of them going to step up and answer it and just take that job opposite Montez Sweat? So I think you've got to say it's the edge rusher or the defensive end opposite Montez Sweat would be a big competition.
All right. I'll also concur with you there. How the mix is overall. I think they're all going to get playing time one way or another. Starters or not, they like the rotation. Every defensive line coach does. Every defensive coordinator does. Unless you got a guy like Aaron Donald can play his mind out wherever he goes and how many snaps he can do in a game. But that will be a big discussion point over the course of the season. All right, coming up next, we got Tom's Thoughts. This is ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer chatting about the Bears. It must be Bears Weekly.
Well, if it's Bears Weekly,
it must be the home of the Bears, ESPN Chicago.
Welcome back, everybody, to Bears Weekly, our final segment this week with Tom's Thoughts. We know Ben better. What do we expect?
So I went around the alumni horn and I called a bunch of players about what they got out of training camp Mike Ditka's second year. And because he came in and he initially had a mini camp in Arizona and then he had a pretty tough training camp and these guys weren't used to it. And there was a lot of decisions that were being made through the mind of the coaches in the way they challenged these guys at practices. And so I go, was it any easier the second year after Ditka got to know you guys any better? He goes, no, matter of fact, it was a little harder. And so we all got to learn a lot about Ben Johnson last year, and it all began with OTAs and minicamp and then spilled over to an eye-opening training camp. And so, yeah, we got to know Ben, but, what do you expect out of him in year two?
I think players got to earn it. I think most coaches, these young players are still young. Granted, you got some select veterans on this team, but I think it's going to be a tough training camp. I really do. I think they went further, played a lot better than what they thought and went a lot further in the playoffs than what they expected. But I do think that got them a little bit more hungry. And I think Ben wants to have another hard training camp again because these young players aren't yet broken in of what's expected. And so I would expect this to be a pretty difficult. They're going to, Dennis Allen's doing the up downs again. I mean, that's not going to change. So I think those things, the first couple of years and then maybe next year, if they're able to follow this year with another strong year, then maybe it could be where you lighten up a little bit going into your third year.
Shoot, I hope they never lighten up. I want the same every year. Keep that edge going, up downs included. In fact, I think they ought to have the preseason television crew and the radio crew have to go through up downs and able to do the broadcast. I mean, that's really what should be done. We should all have to do up downs for Dennis Allen and the Bears. You in, Tom? Could you do 10 up downs right now?
Yeah, I could do 10 up downs. I don't know at what pace. I could be like the William Perry up downs where he was a couple reps behind the rest of the crew when Buddy Ryan was leading them through up downs.
Oh, my gosh. All right, you're only done hunting at 3 spots. Is that for a starting job?
Tight end, quarterback, safety. Hunting season is open for all other positions for me.
Left guard?
I'm out there. Huh?
Left guard, Joe Tooney?
No, I'm the guard position.
Okay,
every other position I'm out there, I'm hunting for players. I'm looking at the waiver wire. I'm looking at free agents. I'm looking at maybe a UFL guy. I'm satisfied at tight end. I'm satisfied at quarterback, and I'm satisfied at safety. Every other position, Jeff, it's still open season for me, and the season will not close until I'm satisfied with all the other groupings there.
Yeah, I think you always got to have your eye open. I mean, you're only one injury away. I think we know that. I mean, what looks like a position of strength, God forbid if there was an injury at any of those Tom's positions that he just mentioned, you're looking for another guy right away, So it's I mean, look at the center position, how that changed this year with just Drew Dahlman retiring. That became a position of need just by one guy retiring.
Yeah. Are we going to be we didn't talk about that in the offensive line earlier in the show. Is that going to be also a major story, Garrett Bradbury and Logan Jones, fellas? Or not?
I think it will. I think it will just because you brought in experience. You answered the bell immediately. As soon as Drew Dahlman retired, you went out and you got Garrett. And he is a legitimate quality NFL starter. And then when Logan came available to him in the NFL draft, who was considered one of the top centers, they went out and drafted him. So the competition is on. It's immediate. It's when I was a starting offensive guard here and they went and drafted Jerry Fontenot in the third round out of Texas A&M. I automatically felt a sight on my back going, okay, they went and drafted a guy, take my job.
Yeah. Wait, seriously, when that happened, do you remember where you were at and what were you, were you like, what are they doing type of thing?
Well,
or did you take it differently?
No, I was a type of guy that was glued to the draft, and I was looking at when they brought in guys at my position and where did they draft them. And all of a sudden, here's a third-round guard out of Texas A&M who's a quality football player. I said, all right, they're sending a message. They're firing a shot across the bow. Now, what are you going to do against it? And it's weird because I remember getting off the bus for a away game, and one of the reporters came up to me and said, hey, Tom, they just traded Jay to Cleveland. And then all of a sudden now Jerry Fontenot goes one position to the left. And so, you never know how things are going to work itself out.
Yeah, I'd still think, let's say it is a good competition through camp and Logan Jones really impresses. You always got Luke Newman that can play as well. I think they got a lot of strength there at that position at center, and think about that. That's saying a lot with Drew Dahlman retiring. They reacted very quickly to secure themselves.
And I'm glad. I really like the fact that they're going to practice at Cincinnati, at Tennessee before they play them. I like the 2 versus the 1. I know they've shrunk it down from 2 days to 1 day now. That's a thing. But that's going to really get some good evaluating going on for the Bears. All right, last one for Tom. Don't enjoy this month. You're on notice. It's been something Tom's been preaching since they broke up after minicamp.
Since I decided to go to college and play football, I've hated the month of July. And I hated every single day of it. I couldn't enjoy the 4th of July. I don't care for hot dogs and picnics and all that kind of stuff because the only thing on my mind was being prepared for what I was getting ready to go into, and that's training camp. And so back in the days when I used to go to Notre Dame, they had a conditioning test day 1, and it was absolutely awful. It was one of the worst days, and then it got worse from that point on because we went into full padded practices immediately. When you get ready to go and play in the NFL, you kind of think of what this whole month is going to be about. So it's not, like I said, we talked about a little bit about it to the guys that we interviewed about. This is not a vacation. This is not a time to relax. This is a time to work harder than you've ever worked in your life when all your buddies are going down to the river and jumping on the party barges and hanging out and having fun. You can't do it. You got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go for a run or go and do some sprints. You got to go to the gym every day. This is not an enjoyable month for those guys that are getting ready to go out there and put their lives on the line.
Yeah, I was like Tom. I couldn't get away from it, so I actually worked harder. I cranked things up even harder, and my mind was just on what was ahead, and it just seemed like every day was that countdown, the countdown to takeoff. You could never get away from it, Jim, at all for me.
You played on more teams than Tommy did. Tommy just 2 teams. Did you ever go into a July, not a training camp, going into July thinking, geez, man, did you ever have a doubt in your mind about if it was going to be room at the inn for you on that team going into training camp?
Yeah, it was after I left the Bears. I went down to, obviously, Tampa Bay, and I was healing up from a shoulder. I was healing up from an Achilles, and I was worried about my other Achilles, and sure enough, my Achilles tore. Oh. It tore before camp, and I had to sit out that year of football.
Wow.
And so I was very... how do I say it? I just was not prepared. I was really worried going into that training camp, and ultimately it was decided when my right Achilles did tear, and I knew I wasn't going to be playing, but it was very up in the air for me. It was not a comfortable summer at all.
Who were the QBs there at that time, you remember?
Big Bad Brad Johnson. Remember Brad Johnson?
Yes, of course. Yes. He was very
Chris
good.
Sims, they brought me in to bring along Chris Sims. They just drafted Chris Sims, so it was good.
Yeah, well, I feel for you football players, that's for sure, because nothing stays the same, and there's always somebody hunting. As Tom used to hear, I'm done hunting 3 spots. I wouldn't want to hunt your spots, though, guys.
I will say this, Jeff, even for an ex-player, sometimes those nightmares come back to haunt you. And you think about late for a meeting. You think about getting ready to run a couple 880s or 440s. You just think about what you had to go through in order to get ready or to start training camp.
Well, Tom, I hope for your sake you enjoy July a little bit more now that you're a veteran announcer and not a veteran football player. Is that can we throw some hot dogs on the grill and enjoy a party barge? Come on, Tom.
No, man. But I know and I respect what these guys are going through mentally and physically at home or wherever they're training.
All right, fellas, we're off next week because of the 4th of July and a week away from Hallis. So we'll regroup here in a couple weeks. Thank you, boys. For Tom Thayer and Jim Miller, I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks to Kendra Smith and our entire crew. Coming up next, we've got Amber Inian. This has been Bears Weekly on the radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Chicago Bears Network presentation of Bears Weekly, hosted by the mayor of Bearsville, Jeff Joniak, and Surfmaster Tom Thayer. Podcasts are available on the Chicago Bears official app, brought to you by Verizon and Apple Podcasts. Bears Weekly has been brought to you by Miller Lite.